TD for Kerry South. This is a great victory for the animal rights activists, isn't it?
Well, the very first thing I'd say is I want to make it quite clear that all roads lead to Killarney and County Kerry today, tomorrow and the next day, because this is a traditional festival which goes back for hundreds of years. We have a voluntary fundraising committee who work very diligently and taking into account all of the best veterinary advice, and they have great organisational capabilities because over 100,000 people will come to this massive festival. It runs, thankfully, thanks be to God, very safely every year. And the people and the families that come, they have a great time and a very enjoyable time. With regard to the issue of the goat, there has been calls to make changes. The committee have listened to those calls. They have taken on board the best of advice and they have made the changes. I have to be honest and frank and tell you that I wouldn't agree with the changes they've made. I'm very supportive of the committee. I do everything I can every year to assist as a politician representing the Killarney area, not just nationally but locally for many, many years before that. I actually wouldn't agree with him making any changes.
So you would rather them continue a practice that animal rights groups have called cruel and unnecessary?
Yes, because where is there evidence of any cruelty? The goats have always been weighed when they would have been captured. They would have been weighed upon capture and upon release. And everything that happens to the goat is they actually put on body weight, which is a sure sign that an animal is being well taken care of. And let's put it this way, if an animal was being traumatized, not being fed, not being watered, or not being taken care of, they wouldn't put on conditions. They put on condition, which is a sure sign that they were always being taken care of. But
I find that logic interesting. Like, if you overfeed an animal to the, like, are you saying so that, like, by overfeeding ducks to make foie gras, they're making them the healthy ducks because they're weighing more after they finish packing them with food than they were beforehand?
Are you worried? Is anybody else trying to insinuate that the goats weren't well taken care of?
I think a lot of people would say sticking an animal in a cage for 3 days and hoisting it above drunken revelers probably isn't the best for its well-being. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, sure, but isn't this great? We live in a democracy, and if that's your opinion, and if you're against this tradition, you're perfectly entitled to your opinion, as are any of your listeners. What I'm saying is that it is my belief, and it is my considered opinion, that there was nothing wrong with the tradition that was carried on for years. But we're speaking retrospectively now because the committee who are in charge, the voluntary committee, they've made changes. I respect their decision to make those changes, and they've done so following on from the best of advice. And this is the festival we're going to have now, and I'm delighted. But what I would say is I don't want this to be seen as what I would call the thin end of the wedge. If there are people involved in groups, if they think that this is a success for them, well, maybe the next thing that they might be successful in doing, for example, would be stopping horse racing, stopping live exports, stopping the production of animals at all for consumption, because you must remember that sometimes the art of living might not be very nice if you think about some of the things we have to do. We have to eat. So if we produce meat, we have to kill that meat then. We have to kill that animal to eat them.
Yeah.
And some people mightn't like that, but that is a fact.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you're look, I get it. I mean, the hypocrisy of people eating meat and on the same time claiming that about animal cruelty, but we're talking about something that's totally unnecessary here, aren't we? Like, you were saying that we all have to eat, which is fair enough, we do. Now, we don't necessarily have to eat animals, but if we make that choice, then we can. Do we really need to stick a goat in a cage for 3 days and hoist it above a street?
Well, if there was something fundamentally wrong with it, if the animal was cold, if the animal was hungry, if the animal wasn't being treated properly, but that was never the case. But like I say, we're speaking about something now that is not going to happen because the committee have decided to move on. They've made changes. What my main message to people today is, Puck Fair is on. It's a great festival. It's a very enjoyable festival. It has started this morning with a fair. And I would ask people to bring their families for the next 3 days. It's thoroughly enjoyable, a very safe and happy fair for people to come to. A massive amount of effort goes into it. It's one of our oldest and longest running traditions, this festival. So whether you're from Ireland or abroad or visiting here, I would ask everybody to come to Kerry over the next 3 days, and you certainly won't be disappointed. There's a regular bus service from other parts of the county bringing people to Killorglin. There's ample car parking made available. The street vendors and traders, they're all in place. I was there last night. I will be there again today. And I'll be there over the next 2 days, calling to see that everything is running smoothly and that everybody's having a happy and safe and enjoyable.
And look, it's like nobody can doubt the fact that how important it is to the local people of Killorglin and absolutely to the county Kerry generally in terms of bringing in people into the town. Nobody would doubt that. But like, is this now a case of taking that step back and giving an inch to these rights activists? Do you think now they will take a while? Can you see further push for this practice of hoisting the goat to be finished altogether?
Well, you see, look, there are groups there. There are groups who are anti-everything. And I'm not branding any one particular group with any paintbrush. But what I would say to you is there are groups who are against everything. And if these people had their way, we would all lead very sad and unfulfilled lives. And I will give you an example. They would want horse racing. They wouldn't want greyhounds to be bred for sport or for racing. Correct. They wouldn't want any of that type of activity. And there are people like that. And I don't know what they're for.
But these are people who just want animals to be essentially like left alone, that we shouldn't be taking animals and presuming that we can use animals for our own sport, or at least we shouldn't be using animals and putting their lives at risk for sport. I mean, you look at horse racing during the hunt season, how many horses are put down when their legs are broken falling over jumps. We looked at the RTV Investigates program that has almost crippled the greyhound industry now in the country, and yet there's a huge amount of government funding going towards these sports. When we talk about, you've highlighted yourself in your own constituency about services that you've lacked, and yet there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, euro of government state money going towards to support these industries that a lot of people would say put animals' lives at risk.
Well, let me make it very clear. I absolutely in no way would tolerate any type of cruelty or not taking care of animals. There recently was a film done on live exports. I'm a very lifelong supporter of our live exports, quite simply because we're an island nation and we have to export our animals. But I want us to do so in a safe and caring way that takes care of the animals. And I believe you can do both. And I would never want to see any wrongdoing. I believe that the farmers of Ireland take the utmost of care of their animals. They want to protect them. They want to mind them. But they have to be allowed to continue to farm at the same time. The standard of housing, of accommodation, of waste disposal on our farms has massively increased, in particularly over the last 20 years. And people have to acknowledge that. But again, there are people who are anti-everything. And I certainly don't want those people to be getting their way, quite simply because I believe they're wrong. I believe in allowing horse racing to continue, to let the greyhound industry continue, and to let farmers continue in taking into account the best farm practices, which they always do. And but there are antis in every walk of life, and there are people going around the place who literally would like to see nothing happening. They would like to see
that's
people enjoying it.
That's not necessarily fair, though. I don't think that's fair. I think people don't want animals to be used for sport, and they don't want animals to be treated in a way that they see as being cruel. I mean, I have spoken to people within the horse racing industry who have told me about certain trainers who I won't name on air now, but they have said, if you think that's bad, that is the tip of the iceberg. And there are some very good horse trainers out there, but there are some really shocking ones. And a lot of people are saying that there isn't enough regulation around the treatment of horses when in the yards behind closed doors.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that because the horse racing industry is highly regulated.
I'm only telling you what people in the industry are telling me. I'm talking to somebody who is working with the Racing Post for years and is telling me this.
What I would always say about a thing like that is if anybody has any evidence of wrongdoing with regard to the safety or the well-being of any animal, they should report that to the authorities. But the people that I know, and for instance, the people who I would be very personally acquainted with in County Kerry, for example, I visit their farms. I visit where they keep their greyhounds. I'll give you an example. One morning, a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, I was in a certain part of Kerry and I met an elderly man and he was coming back from the beach. And he was after having his greyhound. His greyhound now was up on the back seat of the car. And where he was after being that morning was at the beach with his greyhound, taking the dog for a walk along the edge of the beach, because it's good for the dog's paws, walking on the sand and the salt and the water. And the dog was delighted with himself. The owner was delighted with himself after having his walk on the beach. And it was a lovely thing to see. So these are the people that I represent.
But that's not the same. You can't equate somebody bringing their dog for a walk to people like running greyhounds for sport. It's totally different owning a greyhound. And by the way, the amount of people who have had to foster greyhounds that have been abandoned, that's another story for another day. But you can't tell me that, dogs enjoy running. It's very clear that they love, most dogs really enjoy running. They love running around. They enjoy that. But there's a whole different case between running dogs for sport against each other around the track and the likelihood. I mean, the risk of them picking up an injury or picking up something that could end up seeing them put down is much, much higher on a greyhound track than it is just taking your dog on the beach for a run. Those two can't be equated, Michael, can they?
Well, if I was to take your argument to its ultimate logical conclusion, people who participate in sports, for example, extreme sports, if they're cycling very quickly in the Rosthalton, or if they're going the Tour de France, people who run at a very high level, who swim, all of these people get injured, don't they?
Have a choice.
But
they have a choice. They make their own decision to do that. If I can go out in the morning, if I had somebody put me on leash and tell me I had to run around the track, I know that it's slightly different. Some greyhounds obviously very much do enjoy it. I'm not saying that everything's bad, but you can't, it's just, I don't understand your logical conclusion, because we are able to get up in the morning and make a decision. We have those decision-making capabilities. But the owners of dogs are, as you say, there are those dogs' owners. So they make those decisions for that dog. And in making that decision, they put their dogs at risk.
Well, I said a while ago, we live in a democracy, and that's great. If you're for something, isn't that brilliant? If you're against something, isn't that brilliant? You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Yeah,
but the one thing that would guide me always is best practice, safe practice. The regulations that are there, whether it's regard to housing animals, whether it's with regard to the feeding of animals, the taking care of them, the veterinary care that they need and that they require. And what I'm for is best standards, but I'm also deeply committed to maintaining the sports and all of the different traditions that we've had back over the years. And yes, changes might have to be made over the years. We evolve, we change, whether it's in the veterinary care of animals and all the different types of changes that have to be made. But again, I will just say to you finally, there are people who are against things. And look, there will always be against things. But they're the same type of people. I'm fully convinced they're against so much that I actually don't know what they're for. But that's, again, it's their own business.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And you're completely entitled to your opinion. Look, we have texts in here. What a stupid presenter talking about a goat and animals being slaughtered every day and no talk about that. God help you, you fool. So, look, there's a huge...
And you'll have people ringing in and saying that I'm totally wrong. And I respect their opinion and I respect their right to say. There'll be people listening to this and they'll say that I'm totally wrong and that I'm off the wall and I'm this and I'm that and I'm those things. And then you'll have people who say that I'm 100% right, that I'm speaking up and that I'm talking common sense and that I'm perfectly entitled.
Absolutely. I suppose it's just what I'm looking at here is just I just want to put these to you. And look, I want to move on to another topic because there's something else I would really like to speak to you just before we let you go. But in 2021, 154 greyhounds died. A further 197 dogs were injured. There were 715 greyhounds killed at Irish tracks between 2015 and 2020. You can understand why people are upset at the fact that the government continues to fund an industry which puts animals, and we say dogs are a man's best friend or a woman's best friend or whatever you want to say, but the dogs are a man's best friend, and yet we're killing them by the 100 every year as part of an industry that's funded by the state.
I wouldn't agree with that. And if I had known that you were bringing me on the radio to go into an in-depth conversation like this, I would have had statistics.
No, I'm not trying to catch you out. Sorry, Mike, I'm not trying to catch you out. I'm just,
Just leave me finish because you're after asking me a question. Now I'm going to answer it. I will come on your show sometime and I'll give you the statistics of the amount of horses, the amount of dogs that are raised, produced, exported, and that have long and happy lives and go into retirement. We have greyhounds that are they're very sought after demand when they're retired from their life of racing, if that's what they've been doing, and they make great pets for people and for families. And so to go painting it all as though it's wrong, I think not only are you doing a bad service to the greyhound industry this morning, but also to horse racing and Horse Racing Ireland and all of the great organisations that represent these people. But if that's what you want to do with your programme this morning, you're perfectly entitled. I will defend our horse racing industry. I will defend the people who have greyhounds, whether it's for pleasure, whether it's for professional or whatever type of uses. I will defend those people because I personally know them. I have visited their farms. I have visited their dog kennels. I've seen what they do. I've seen the great work that they do. And I've seen how good they take care of their animals. And I think it's so wrong to be coming on a radio show this morning and trying to present everything as though it's bad and that it's wrong and that it's
no, but I have to present, like, my job is to present the opposing view. Like, I mean, I can't have you on for half an hour and agree with everything you say, Michael. It's just, it's just not the way these things go,
I'm not saying that you should. All I'm saying is that you should be fair in your presentation.
No, I appreciate that. And as I said, like,
if you take, for instance, if you're a person who breeds greyhounds, for example, and if they're listening to you this morning, and if they're saying, oh my God, isn't that so wrong to be giving this presentation as if that everything is wrong and that we're all cruel, I think that's an awful thing for you to do. Like, you should be saying, what about the people who are highly respectable and who produce greyhounds, who breed greyhounds, and who've been doing so, and their fathers and mothers before them, and who really take pride in their dogs.
I do appreciate there are people out there. No, there are.
You must be fair now. You can't have it all your own way and go quoting off statistics about deaths as if this is all horrible and wrong.
No, but that's why I'm putting them to you. That's why I'm putting them to you, Michael. This is exactly why I'm putting these statistics to you, because you're in the position to tell me that I'm wrong. That's how this works. Look, I can tell you, I haven't been to greyhound trainers. I've been to horse trainers. I have seen how the horses are taken care of in those trainers' yards, and I can say the care that they have has been exceptional. But it would be remiss of me not to put figures to you. When you say that I'm supporting this industry, it would be remiss of me not to say to you, well, this is an industry that also causes... I'm not saying that means that all greyhound trainers are terrible villains in this. I'm just saying that the plain facts are borne out that there are dogs
We'll agree to
disagree.
And I respect you, and I will always say about everything, because I really believe that. I have no monopoly in being right all the time, but I just believe in the people who I know do great work and who are very proud of the work they do every day from early morning till late at night. And I talk up for those people. And
that is why I wanted to just come to you just before we finish. And you probably are no doubt aware of this this morning in the Farmers Journal, that I suppose of those people, 3 and 4 would vote for a new Farmers Party. Now they're saying they want a new Irish Farmers Party. Since the rise of the BBB in the Netherlands, that's no doubt something you've had an eye on. Is this a Farmers Party that will include rural independence, or do you think that people are looking at rural independence and saying we want something different?
Well, I belong to a group, the rural independent group, who... we come together in a technical type of an arrangement with regard to speaking time, but ideologically a lot of our opinions would be the same. We would be predominantly what I would call from the pro-life campaign side of the house, and we would be very much aligned in our thinking in a lot of the way we look on things. But, for example, am I going joining some other party or something? I absolutely am not, because I'm elected as an independent, and I was selected in the first instance to replace my father as being the candidate from the Healy Rae family to run instead of him when he retired from politics back in 2011. And I was very glad to be selected and to run and to have held on to the seat since then. And I will continue to do that in the years ahead.
Do you see this though as a criticism of farmers of the work that the Rural Independence has done, to say that they're now looking for a new party to take over?
No, not at all. I think if people want to see a new grouping coming together, sure, of course, wouldn't that be great? But I'm just saying that I necessarily won't be joining any other group. I am an independent, Healy Rae, and that's what I will be in the future if the people will have me. You can only be there if the people want to. All right?
Absolutely. And look, as we say, Puck Fair this week, it's going to be a huge event. Yeah, and it's going to be a huge event.
Put a smile in your face and head to Kerry.
I don't know. It's always, whenever I head down there, it's always a beautiful part of the world to be. Michael Healy Rae, look, thank you so much for not only the call, but the very robust debate this morning. And look, enjoy the Puck Fair.
That's what life is all about. Thank you.
Take care.
Talk to Neil Prendeville now. 0818